Welcome back to Royals Weekly. I am your host, Marcus Mead, and joining me as always, a guy who loves to hear fireworks at 1 a.m. year-round, guys, my brother Mike.
I tell you, if this, you and I grew up in a rural part of the state, kind of, and I also now live kind of, it's weird. I live in the suburbs, but these people all act like we live out in the country. They're firing off fireworks nonstop. I mean, we are a town of like 5,000 people. We have multiple fireworks tents, many of them in a tiny, tiny little town. And I finally figured out the rule, by the way. I believe my wife told me the rule the other day. Don't quote me on this, but I think the law in Little Greenwood, Missouri is 7 days before and 7 days after it's legal to shoot off fireworks.
Don't know why that's the law. That sounds awful.
It does. And my son has not slept, did not sleep all last week. Finally, last night, there were only a couple, but man, it's rough.
Someone right next to my house has decided that this is going to be like a week-long event, and so I've been hearing it since.
And it's illegal, even on the 4th.
It's illegal in this state, in this city. Like I'm in the city. Like I don't know what they're doing, and so and I'm not talking like, oh, they're funny little sparkly things in the sky. Somebody's letting off sticks of dynamite next to my house right now. It's insane. And I'm talking 1 o'clock in the morning type stuff.
Oh. So luckily it's not that late here, but my son goes to bed at 7:30, 8 o'clock.
Insane. So, when I'm laying in bed and I've been like asleep for 2 hours and I hear a firework go off, I'm nuts. I'm looking for blood. Anyway, on this week's episode, we'll dig into a crap fest of a week from the Royals. Although that was punctuated a little bit today by a little bit nicer finish to the week because they got one win in that Rocky series. But then we'll take a close look at the Royals bullpen and discuss what can be done about it. There's a lot of conversation about like trading for bullpen arms or bringing people up or changing roles or whatever. So we'll dive into the bullpen conversation and then we'll preview this week's games. But first, we have a big time programming note for you. Next week, a week from today, is the Major League Baseball draft. Once again, we'll be doing our live draft night watch-along episode. So we will be broadcasting live, hopefully from Mike's basement, maybe from separate locations. We're going to try and work out the technology and see. Hopefully, we'll be joined by some Royals other content creators. We've invited some of them. We've gotten some yeses, some maybes from some people. So hopefully some people you've seen on the show or just some people you know from Royals Twitter or whatever will join us for that conversation. We're going to walk you through all the day one picks. Pick 6, pick 39, pick 41. We're going to walk you through all of them. It's an extra long episode that we do, but it's a ton of fun. Please join us by watching on YouTube. Just go to the Royals Weekly YouTube channel and subscribe right now to make sure you can be part of that conversation. Okay. And then you can ask us questions while it's going on, all this sort of stuff. It's a great time. And last year, a bunch of people joined and we had a really good time. We'll kick that off at 5:30 Central Time. The draft itself starts at 6 o'clock Central Time. And so we're going to have a night full of fun draft conversation as we see who the next wave of Royals talent is. So join us for that, please. Again, go to the Royals Weekly YouTube channel to find that and make sure you're subscribed so you can get an alert when that starts, okay? We also have this week an Apple Podcast review to give you. Yay! Awesome. Right. We love those Apple Podcast reviews. And so we thank all of you for doing it. Make sure you're out there giving us those Apple Podcast reviews, subscribing to the Substack. Mike wrote an excellent profile of Ramon Ramirez. I wrote an excellent weekly wrap-up this week talking about various things. And I'm thinking about writing a Walter Pennington specific post here in the next few days if I get the time. So subscribe to that Substack, but leave us an Apple Podcast review. Give us thumbs up, all that sort of stuff. This Apple Podcast review comes from somebody calling themselves Cleggs26, okay? And the review is titled, Great Place for Your, and I can't see the rest of it. It just says, Great Place for Your ... So I don't know. Maybe there's more to the title. I don't know. But the review itself says, the place to be for Royals seam heads like me. Keep it up, fellas. Thank you so much, Cleggs.
Love it.
26. If you're a seam head, if you're into baseball and you want the in-depth stuff, you come to Royals Weekly. If you want to be a great weekly weirdo, you leave a Apple Podcast review like Cleggs 26 did. We dig people like him or her. That could be a woman. We don't know. Prove it's not a woman. So thank you so much, Cleggs 26. We really appreciate it.
Like we got a legion of female followers out there, I'm sure.
I've seen the demographic breakdowns on our YouTube page. They are not good. They are not evenly balanced.
Yeah.
We also need to remind you that Bet Online is your number one source for all of your sports betting needs this season. From baseball, golf, soccer, right to all the top fights in UFC, MMA, and boxing. Every stat, every matchup, and even live odds and spreads while the games are being played. When the game's over, head on over to their online casino and get in on a game of blackjack or poker or unwind with one of their over 150 slot games. Head to the website today to get in on the action. Use promo code BELIEVE, that's BLEAV, for your 50% free bet credit on your first deposit up to $250. Bet online, the game starts here. We'll start a review of last week with roster news like we always do. There's a ton to get through, Mike, so we're going to have to be very very concise with our points on this roster news. There we go. As the Royals do what they can to manage some injuries and some bullpen stuff, they're sort of shuffling a lot of dudes backwards and forwards. They started this week by optioning CJ Alexander back to AAA. We know that they brought him up to help deal with Adam Frazier. Not Adam. It is Adam Frazier. Adam Frazier injury at second base. He has since been sent back down. Mike, what are your thoughts on the brief window we got to see CJ Alexander in the major leagues?
Well, I think it's good that he got to see some big league action, but right now he doesn't look like he's ready to be an everyday major league hitter, or even right now, honestly, a rotational hitter. Go back down, make any adjustments that you think you need to. CJ Alexander still may get another shot this year or next year or even the year after to prove that he can hit major league pitching.
Yeah, and here's the thing. From rotational players, you want them to at least be average defensively, and Alexander did not show that he was average defensively, at least at third base, where we saw him, I think, more than once, most of the time even. And so it's not clear what defensive position he'll play. And so, but it is clear what he needs to work on back in AAA. He needs to cut down the swing and miss, cut down that strikeout number a little bit, which will allow him to access his good batted quality contact, which he gets a lot of quality contact, but he needs it to happen more often, and then get a little bit better defensively wherever you're going to play. Okay. You can be more rotational player if you're a little bit better at third base, a little bit better at first. Maybe you can play some outfield in a pinch. That's fine, but he has to cut down on that swing and miss. That'll be the biggest thing for him. The Royals also optioned Carlos Hernandez back to AAA and brought up Walter Pennington. Yay! If you've been following this podcast, you know we've been calling for Walter Pennington to be called up to the major leagues for at least the last month of the season. And so we were very glad to hear he was called up. Mike, what are your thoughts on him being called up, Hernandez going down, and getting to see Pennington pitch?
It's about damn time. I mean, let's take a look at Walter Pennington. Dub P3, I'm calling him. Dub P3. Good.
I like that.
Yeah, he was good in the short outing. I think he got 2 outs, and that's all he pitched, if I'm not mistaken. One of them a strikeout, I think. And I didn't. So I completely missed this move the day that it happened, which I don't know how, but I didn't realize they'd sent Carlos Hernandez down. But still, I think it's a good call. I would take Pennington over Hernandez. I think Pennington we need to be able to see what he can do. He adds a little bit more strikeout ability than some of the other arms that you have in there. I know he's another left-handed arm, and he was the 4th or 5th. That gives him in the bullpen 5th, and that's a lot. But
5th if you count Bubic. At this time, he was only the 4th, I think.
Let this guy show what he can do.
Yeah, Pennington is a different kind of pitcher than they have in the bullpen. They have Will Smith. He's a lefty, but he's not great at getting strikeouts recently in his career, right? Like they have Angel Zerpa, also not a real strikeout guy, more of a ground ball guy. Who else is the lefties in the bullpen? I get them all mixed up.
Long
is a little bit more of a strikeout guy, but he's curveball over slider. Pennington's more of a slider first guy. And so that's good. But right now, Sam Long is their most effective reliever. Why wouldn't you want at least somebody who's similar to him? Really, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's, we're going to talk a little bit about the notion of like what Pennington brings to the bullpen and whether or not like what matters more, variety or quality. And we'll talk about that here in a second. But it was great to see Pennington come up. He was good in his short outing. He was optioned down to AAA basically the very next day as the Royals brought back up Chris Bubic, who's returning from the IL after Tommy John. They also DFA'd Colin Selby to get Bubic back on the 40-man roster. Mike, what are your thoughts on seeing Pennington go back to AAA and Bubic back up in Major League Baseball?
My first thought was, I guess, send him back down. My thought is this. I understand that there's other guys in this bullpen who do not have options, who you would have to just straight up release or whatever. But I think Walter Pennington is better than a couple of guys who are currently in this bullpen. I also think Chris Bubic is as well. And so I would like to see both of them in that bullpen. Get creative. You got to move a guy. You got to cut a guy. I'm okay with those things. I know we don't want to cut some of the guys we've spent money on in the bullpen, a la Will Smith or Chris Stratton and things like that. But you know, I would get creative on what I had to do to get both those guys in the bullpen because they're both have abilities. I know they're both left-handed. They both have the ability to strike guys out, and Bubic has the ability to pitch multiple innings. Pennington as well, and so like that, those guys seem valuable to me. I don't know. Call me nuts.
Yes, I will take quality over variety of type of pitcher, over variety of handedness any day of the week. And frankly, Chris Bubic is a left-handed pitcher, but you shouldn't think of him as a left-handed pitcher because he has reverse platoon splits. And so he actually gets righties out better than he gets lefties out. And so
Because of the
it's not
changeup,
like
yeah.
because of his changeup. It's not a real clear-cut case of like, oh, this guy. So why can't Nick Anderson has options? Why can't he go to AAA? Right? Like
There we go.
send Nick Anderson to AAA, have Walter Pennington and Chris Bubic. I know you got to probably hang on to Will Smith and Chris Stratton until the very last day of the trade deadline because you want anything for them, right? Like, but to me, these two have more quality than at least three of the pitchers in your bullpen. And John Schreiber's getting real close to that group as well. And so it's a no-brainer in my mind to have both of these guys in the bullpen. I will say that Preston Farr of Farm to Fountains brought up an interesting thing on Twitter today related to Walter Pennington's stuff and whether or not it will actually translate to Major League Baseball. That's the thing I'm going to explore in this Substack post I'm going to write this week coming up in the next few days because it isn't great. I mean, if you look at the movement on his pitches, it's not phenomenal. He will not rate as a positive stuff plus guy. But there are a lot of guys who don't. Brady Singer is not a positive stuff plus guy. There are guys who don't have tremendous stuff, who still get outs, who still get strikeouts, who are still really effective. He might end up being one of those guys. You got to give him a chance with what he's done down in AAA so far. The Royals also reinstated Adam Frazier this week. I don't think we're going to talk about that. He was only gone for 10 days. He's back in the lineup today. He led off for them today in a big 10-run effort from the lineup. Great to have him back. He doesn't play that much, but at least he's back on the roster. On the field this week, it was a bit of a travesty out there. The Royals dropped 2 of 3 to Tampa Bay to open the week and then went to Colorado where they proceeded to piss down their legs against one of the worst teams in baseball. Like, what do we say to that? When we say, Momo got too big for him and pissed down his leg, that sort of stuff.
Correct. Okay, correct.
It's folded like church clothes.
He's just really not an athlete.
Not an athlete. I missed that. That's good stuff. Mike, it was not a hugely inspiring week. How do you feel about the baseball you saw?
I feel like the boys were the bad versions of themselves that we've already seen. They lost the games in the ways we've seen them lose games this year. You know, the offense didn't do enough. The bullpen didn't help at all. You know, those are kind of the things that have been there. Still got great starting pitching, but it was still it still didn't equal a positive week. I was looking when I was looking for a theme, I'm thinking like, what's the theme of you really play down to your scummiest when you play those types of teams? You know, when you play the Oaklands and the Miamis and the friggin' Rockies and you can't win series, that's tough. You know, it's not going to be, you got to feast on the teams you're supposed to feast on. And right now they're not doing it and it hurts.
It does hurt because, man, they needed to make hay in this Tampa Bay and Colorado series. They'll have another chance after the All-Star break, like 4 weak opponents in a row, a long homestand. It's like White Sox, Diamondbacks, Cubs, White Sox again, I think.
The Cubs are getting hot a little bit.
The Cubs are doing okay, but, you know, they're still not great. And so they'll have another chance. But, man, it would have been – I mean, they've blown now 2 windows worth of soft opponents to beat. They've just sort of blown it. And that's tough to hear. This week, you basically have 3 units in baseball. You have the lineup, the offense, you have the starting pitching, and you have the bullpen. 2 of those 3 played like crap this week, and so they didn't do a lot of winning, right? Which has been the case all year. It's never been the starting rotation. It's always been the lineup and the bullpen. And what's interesting about the lineup, what we saw this week, and I wrote about this a little bit in the Substack for today, their performance with runners in scoring position took a huge regression bite this week. They took a huge step back with runners in scoring position this week, and that's what killed them. Like, that was it. You know, they had a 19 weighted runs created plus with runners in scoring position this last week. 19. That's 81% below league average. Okay? 81% below league average. Last in Major League Baseball. So anytime that's the case, you're getting guys on, but you're not hitting when they're on. you're going to be in trouble. And they were. They lost to some bad pitchers in this Rocky series, some super bad pitchers, and that's what happened. It happened. Despite the rough week, we did have some strong performers to choose from. Mike, who was your strong performer for this week?
I took the absolutely scalding hot, newly minted All-Star, and possible MVP candidate, Bobby Witt Jr. Okay? Went with the layup here. 12 for 24. That's right. He hit 500 this week. Okay? He had 3 doubles, 3 home runs, 7 RBI. I think he had 1 walk to 3 strikeouts or something like that. Just a phenomenal week. The guy did everything that he wanted to do with the bat. It seemed like every time he swung it, he was on second. And you're like, oh, no triples this week, Bobby? Oh, you suck. This guy is.
Are you even trying out there?
Are you even trying, Bobby Witt Jr.? It's Coors Field, huge outfield. But no, Bobby Witt Jr., absolute minted superstar. He's got a chance. You know what's weird? Would you have ever pegged it as Bobby Witt Jr. might have a chance to win a batting title? I never would have thought of him as a batting title.
I wouldn't either. I always thought he was going to hit around 280, but no, he's killing it this year.
I did think there would be maybe a little bit more pop, like home run numbers, I thought, but
right.
Still,
I guess we should
hit 3 home runs this week.
We should have thought of that because
25 home runs.
He's one of the fastest players in baseball, and so that always gives him a chance to leg out a lot of infield singles, which he does. He had one today, at least one. And so, that'll help his chances. He's got 20 points worth of batting average that are just infield singles, basically. So that's great. Yes. And what's weird is you say he's the layup, but we don't name him as a strong performer very often. I think because we take him for granted. It's like, it's too easy. That's just too easy. My strong performer for this week is one Brady Singer. He went out today when the Royals really needed a win, and he shoved against the Colorado Rockies. But that made it his second start this week. He went 12 1/3 innings for the whole week in those 2 starts, only 2 earned runs, 9 hits, 5 walks, and 11 strikeouts. The walks are a little bit higher than you'd like, but 11 strikeouts pretty nice. He just had his stuff going this week. He's got his ERA under 3 for the year. And we talk a lot about the ways in which Brady Singer is a frustrating pitcher, the ways in which he scares us at times, the ways in which he is in some ways deficient. But maybe we should spend a little more time talking about the ways in which he's really, really good. And some of that is just consistency. He's just out there sort of doing the same thing all the time. Yeah, sometimes you wish he had a little more variety to his arsenal, but he's out there pumping sliders and 2-seamers and a few 4-seamers. And when he's on, and he can tunnel like crazy, and he can get ground balls, and he limits the damage in some ways. And so, yeah, Brady Singer, a guy who I mentioned it today, Cole Reagans and Seth Lugo were both named as All-Stars today. There's every argument that Brady Singer also deserves to be one.
He seems like and I don't know if I haven't backed this up with numbers or anything, but it seems like he is one of our starting pitchers who absolutely feasts on bad teams. And then against the good lineups, he can really struggle sometimes. He just has been going out this year and dominating these crappy teams because he's got the location to do it with a 2-seamer. He can get them to ground into double plays in key situations, which happened today a couple times. And it's fun to watch, and it's valuable. I mean, it's valuable.
Yeah, against tougher, he is the type of pitcher who definitely will struggle more against tougher lineups. But boy, you love a pitcher who you can count on against those bad lineups where you're like, hey, we don't have to worry that this guy might go out and give up a 5 spot to a really not good lineup, right? Like, no, he's going to go out, he's going to do his thing, he's going to get the ground balls, he's going to make guys chase sliders outside the zone, and he's going to get, through 6 or 7 without giving up any run.
Him and Alec Marsh are the exact opposites.
Yes, they are the two.
Marsh, you feel like could no-hit a great lineup and get killed by a terrible one. Singer's the other way.
Yeah. Mike, some guys did not have such shining weeks this week as Brady Singer and Bobby Witt Jr. Who was your week performer for this week?
Well, we have to start having a conversation about a man named John Schreiber. You mentioned him earlier. Schreiber was bad again this week. 2 innings pitched, 5 hits, 3 earned runs, 2 walks that were awful, and 4 Ks. I mean, I still think Schreiber is the kind of guy that can be a valuable part of a bullpen because, like we talk about, you want a guy who can strike people out. You also want a guy who can get a ground ball. In a pinch, bases loaded, something like that, maybe we need a ground ball. But that kind of guy can't walk people. He can't. He can't do that. And so Schreiber needs to be I think we need to rethink his usage. How are we using a John Schreiber? What is the setup that we want for a pitcher like that? And maybe pull the reins back a little bit. I say that not a lot of places to turn in that bullpen. So
There aren't, but at this point, it's not just usage. Like you're right, they need to think about how they're using John Schreiber at least for a while, but they have to do something to get him back to missing bats. It's weird. If you only watch John Schreiber this year, you would think he is exclusively a ground ball pitcher. Previously, he has not been. He has had strikeout rates over 10 Ks per nine for the last 2 or 3 years. This year, it's under 7 per nine. He is striking out way fewer guys this year than he has in the past, and it's killing him. It's not that he's not getting ground balls. He's getting the ground balls. They're just getting through because he's giving up too many of them. He's not missing any bats. If a guy's put enough balls in play, some of them will fall. They're falling against John Schreiber right now because he's not finding ways to miss bats. So they need to do something to find his pitch that's going to miss bats or to sharpen one of his pitches to allow it to miss bats because it won't be sustainable moving forward if he's like this. It won't continue to work. My week performer for this week is a hitter, and he's a guy who I actually like a lot. I think just had a rough week, and it's mostly about balls in play. That's Nick Lofton. He went 2 for 14 this week with 1 double, 0 walks, 0 strikeouts. Lofton is a dude who has had some bad luck this year. His expected batting average is about 50 points higher than his actual batting average. But the thing that stood out to me as I looked deeper into his numbers today, on the year, Nick Lofton has a 28% hard hit rate. That's really bad. That ain't it at all. And you notice it when you're watching the games too. It seems like he hits a lot of balls off the end of the bat. It seems like he doesn't barrel a lot of balls. And I'm like, that's weird. And then, you look at the numbers and they sort of confirm what you've seen. I don't know why he's unable to really square balls up right now, but it's hurting him in terms of his batted ball outcomes. And that's why he's having a rough week. Mike, with so much going on with the draft coming up, with a rough week off on the field, what is your theme for this week?
Well, I went to a classic Drive-By Truckers tune written by the great Jason Isbell. The song is called Never Gonna Change, but the chorus line is, we ain't never gonna change. And that's what it felt like this week with the offensive struggles, with the bullpen struggles, with the starting rotation looking fantastic. It's like, that's the team that loses to these kind of teams. That's the team that frustrates you in the bad times and then makes you feel better in the other times, So it's like, man, if we can get one of those two units back on track, you feel like you've got a great chance to compete for a playoff spot, but we've got to get one of those two units to be more consistent. I feel like people think the bullpen is the easier of the two to make more consistent. And so maybe that's what we look at as we get closer to that trade deadline.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense to me. I hope they're going to change, to be honest with you, because they need some change.
Doesn't feel that way, does it?
Well, especially when we're losing games the exact same way this week that we've been
Every
losing them for the
single
last
time,
80 games, I was trying to think, I was going with an affective theme this week. How did I feel about the week? And when I thought about that, I thought about a line from Mike's favorite show of all time, television show called Happy Endings. And it's from a character called Brad, who is played by Damon Wayans Jr. And it's actually turned into a GIF. I've used the GIF before, but at one point somebody says something and he just turns to him and goes, okay, I hate all of that. And that's how I felt about this week. I was like, okay, I hate all of that. I was just looking back at the week like, I don't like any of this. This is bad. And so, yeah, the Royals won a couple games. That was great. The starting rotation was good. But in terms of how I felt, I was ready to feel like, I hate all of that. Royals Weekly is brought to you by All In Physical Therapy. You already know that All In Physical Therapy helped turn our mother into the LeBron James of competitive pickleball. But what you don't know is that Mom loved her experience there because of the personal attention she got from Tommy and the staff at All In. They guarantee a personalized one-on-one experience to suit the needs of patients recovering from total joint surgeries, sports injuries, or any kind of injury or pain.
I haven't had a sports injury since I tore my groin playing hopscotch. It's a young man's game.
All In Physical Therapy is owned and operated by Tommy Freevert with locations in Blue Springs and Lee Summit, coming soon to Belton. But most importantly, they're in network for all insurance providers.
Got to be in network or Krampus gives you a piece of old boiled leather for Christmas.
Everyone knows that old tale, right?
Yeah.
That's a classic. It's a classic
that
Christmas
old
tale.
Tradition.
That's a classic one. If you're a high school athlete recovering from an injury or someone bouncing back from a new hip or knee, Check out the best physical therapy in the KC Metro at allin-pt.com. That's ALLIN-pt.com. Or give them a call at 816-427-5300. That's 816-427-5300. The Royals bullpen has been a real roller coaster this season. At times, they've helped pick up a fledgling offense by shutting the door late, but too often, it feels like they're brought in to get tough outs and flounder due to an inability to miss bats and strike people out. We've seen some players take on different roles, like Will Smith, Chris Stratton, and so on, and some step up to bolster this group, like Sam Long. But many are calling for the Royals to go out and trade for some power arms in the bullpen to make a playoff run. So, the central question for our Spotlight segment this week is simply this. What should the Royals do about the bullpen? Mike, broadly speaking, how would you answer that question?
Broadly speaking, I would say that you have to add talent in a variety of ways, and hopefully talent that you can control for a length of time. That would be my best approach there.
Okay, I'm going to ask you to be a little bit more specific and just say, in your ideal world, given the circumstances we have right now, the Royals record and all that sort of thing, how many would you add, and how would you go about adding each one?
I think the very least amount you have to add, if you're trying to create a competitive bullpen to make a playoff run, the least amount you can add is 2. Okay. I would be totally down for 3. And if they did 4, wow, completely remake the bullpen and do it now. I think that probably
how many of
has
those
to come two from, well, okay. So let's say they just do 2. I think 1 comes from inside and Walter Pennington, and I think 1 comes from outside via trade.
Yeah. Okay. All right. That makes sense. I'm going to be a little more specific and say I want them to add more talent from within than from without. I only want them to add 1 reliever in trade. Okay. I'm okay if they pick up a reliever off the scrap heap somewhere, like somebody gets DFA'd because they want to try that out or something. I'm fine with that. But I don't want them trading for more than 1 reliever. Relievers are highly inefficient trade targets because they cost so much money and add so little value. And so I only want them trading for 1. And then I'd like to add any other guys from within. They can add 2 or 3 from within for all I care. Walter Pennington, Will Klein, Steven Cruz, however they want to add guys from within is fine. But I'm only looking for 1 guy in trade. Assuming they add no one, though, let's say they decide, hey, we're not in the trade market for relievers. They don't end up making anything happen. What do you think their best bullpen looks like if they're only using guys from inside the organization?
That's going to be a lot tougher for me. So if you're only using guys from inside the organization, my big question is, who are you putting in those highest leverage, big pressure, have to get Jose Ramirez and Steven Kwan out in the same inning type of situations? Because you don't have the guy. You just don't. Like, and
Chris Bubich.
It's a little bit. I don't think he's that guy either. And I like Chris Bubich as a starter better than I like him in the bullpen. Although I do like him better than most of the guys in the bullpen now. But I think your best bullpen definitely includes Long. It definitely includes Bubich. I think it includes Pennington and Klein to some extent. Really got to see if he can strike out guys in Major League Baseball like he was in AAA. Then maybe you can live with some of the walks.
And does it include Angel Zerpa or James MacArthur?
It does include both of those. Well, yeah, both of those guys. Since you can't go outside the organization, yes, it has to include both of those guys.
Okay, that's 6 guys. What about John Schreiber?
I would probably keep Schreiber.
That's 7.
I would probably also go with, who's going to be my last guy? You probably have to go with Stratton, don't you? I don't want to, though.
Stratton it is. Okay.
It's got to be. It's got to be Stratton. There's nobody else to go with. That's why you got to go outside the organization. There really isn't anybody else to go with. Steven Cruz, I don't trust now.
Yeah, I agree with basically all of that because, if you're going to put together the bullpen that is their best version of their bullpen with only guys inside the org, it's James MacArthur, it's Walter Pennington, it's Sam Long, it's Chris Bubich, it's John Schreiber, it's Chris Stratton, it's Angel Zerpa, and then it's one of who I missed somebody. I don't know about Will Klein. I'm not as sold on Will Klein as you, but in terms of just in the organization, yeah, he's probably better than Will Smith, Chris Stratton, Nick Anderson, those guys. And so, yeah, he's probably maybe my last guy into the bullpen. But if we're just staying within the org, that's probably the best version they got. So we've discussed in previous episodes. We've discussed guys we want them to go after, right? Mike, I'm curious. Who do you think you'd be willing? Who's the best you'd be willing to give up? What's the top you'd be willing to give up for a reliever at this trade deadline? You've already said you want him to go outside the org for at least one guy. What's the most you're willing to give up for that guy?
Well, if it's a rental guy, like we're just going to have him for this playoff push, I'm thinking just like a fringe prospect, a guy who maybe never makes it, maybe you're not counting on him to do anything, something like that. Somebody I would say like I always go to catcher because they're so deep in the organization at catcher. So I think of like a Luca Tresh, or I think of who's another guy?
Like a Trevor Warner
now. Trevor Warner I consider more of like a tools first kind of guy right now. You bank on the power tool, but there's not much else there right now. No, I'm thinking more of a guy where you're like, well, he might end up being a quad A prospect,
like a Jared Dickey.
Yeah, something like that. Or there's who's the kid? I mean, he probably doesn't count.
Let me ask you this though. If you're getting a rental who's like really good, like let's say like a Yuri Garcia from the Blue Jays, who's like, yes, he's a rental. He'll be a free agent in 2025, but he's a really good rental. You probably have to give up more than a fringe prospect. Are you willing to do that for a rental?
My next step up is not fringe prospect. It's like maybe a top 20 guy, but he's like a Tyler Gentry. Like he may end up being a quad A player. You're like, okay, that's the next one to me. Or his ceiling isn't quite as high. Maybe he's like, oh, his ceiling is that he's an average outfielder, or he's a utility guy in the infield, like those type of guys. Step up from that is, hey, this guy is an everyday major leaguer or a good rotation guy, And so I'm not really to go to a guy you're going to have 6 years of control of who might be an everyday major league player or a fringe everyday major league player. I'm not willing to go that for a rental. That would be a step up. If you're getting a guy with control, then that's when we can start talking about, and now mind you, this is still a bullpen arm here. Okay. This is still a bullpen guy. This isn't a rotation guy. He's not super valuable, but if you got control of the guy and he has already shown he can do it in Major League Baseball, then I'm willing to go top 15, top 20, maybe even top 10 to 15 prospect. And give that kind of thing. I wouldn't go any higher than a Carter Jensen. Okay.
Carter Jensen, I think, is Carter Jensen.
I don't know that I would either. It would take a lot for me to do that.
Nope.
Let me put it that way. That would be hey, he's a back end guy, proven kind of as much as you can be. And he's got years of control left still. Okay. Because I know down the road, I may end up flipping him for another, for something else, but still.
Right. That's if he doesn't like blow up in some way, right? Like if his arm doesn't go out or whatever. There's risk involved too, right?
There's definitely risk there. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. A lot of this
who would be a good kid to give up? Austin Charles.
He's
kind
guy.
of that.
Read the outline.
I didn't see it. Sorry.
So the very next thing I have on the outline is Austin Charles or Caden Wallace. So the two guys I'd be willing to give
up. Think alike, I guess.
So here's the thing. I don't value Charles or Wallace as high as some other people do, some other talent evaluators and stuff like that. And so I would be willing to give one of them up for that cost-controlled multi-years of a really good reliever. That's fine with me. I started this by listing out all the guys I would not be willing to give up, but the list got too long. And so I was like, I'm not giving up Blake Mitchell. I'm not giving up
Mazzucato for like a great
no. Hell no. No way. All he does is add 2 miles per hour of velocity and have him throw a few more strikes. The guy's a mid-rotation starter. Right? Like, no, I'm not doing that. And so no Mazzucato, no Caderna, no Mason Barnett, no Chandler Champlain, no Blake Mitchell, no Ramon
What if
Ramirez.
somebody comes out and wants like a Veneciano, like a fringe starter?
Veneciano. Oh, yeah. Sure, yeah. Veneciano's below Charles and Wallace to me. So, yeah, you can have Veneciano if you want him. You can have Daniel Lynch if you want him. You can have Nick Prado. I think there's a lot of delusion on the part of Royals fans, and this happens every year, about like what other teams are willing to take or what other teams value. And so I'm hearing people talk about like, oh, you could get a decent reliever for Daniel Lynch. No, you can't. You cannot. Nobody values Daniel Lynch because he's gone to Major League Baseball and been shelled repeatedly. And so they're looking at him like, okay, you know who you can get? This is going to sound weird. You know who you can get for Daniel Lynch? You can get Nick Anderson for Daniel Lynch. You know how? Because they just got Nick Anderson for Daniel Lynch. They called him Jackson Kowar, right? Like that was his name then, right? Like same difference, right? Like, and so that's the same thing, right? Like you're not getting a serious relief pitcher for Daniel Lynch. That's not going to happen. And so, play the expectation game a little bit, but I'd be willing to go as high as Austin Charles or Caden Wallace to get somebody who has value. Royals Weekly is brought to you by Eric Oxer of West USA Realty. Phoenix has all of our favorite things: year-round golf, year-round baseball, and Eric Oxer of West USA Realty. Whether you want to buy your dream retirement home or just stay a while and catch spring training, Eric can help you find the perfect house. We've known him for 30 years and trust him far more than we even trust each other.
Mark likes to hide half-empty milk cartons in my car, among all the other trash that, so I can't see them.
Eric does long-term rentals for the snowbird crowd and home sales and purchases for those who want to stay a while longer. Are you a baseball player or parent who needs a place in the Phoenix area? Eric will help you find the perfect spot fast. Want to spend your days shanking golf balls into the great beyond? Eric knows the golf scene like Mike knows how to collect half-empty milk cartons in his car. They're all over the place. Find Eric online at ericoxer.com if you can figure out how to spell his name. ERICKAUXIER.com. Or just shoot him a text at 480-383-9745. That's 480-383-9745. Even if you're just curious about what he can do for you, he's 100% no pressure, one of the best people we know.
And he's just the best.
He is the best. This is the last week of games before the All-Star break, and the Royals have 2 off days during this week. It's a weird schedule. It's like a soft launch for the All-Star break this week because they have a bunch of time off anyway. They'll start the week with a day off on Monday. Then they have a two-game series against the Cardinals in St. Louis. Then they'll fly to Boston for a 3-gamer against the Red Sox. Mike, tell us about the team with the best fans in baseball.
Well, I would love to do
Self-proclaimed best fans in baseball. My bad.
I would love to do that, but my brother doesn't know how to fill out an outline, so I got to go look up some of this info real quick.
Sorry, the Cardinals are currently 47-42.
The Cardinals are currently 47-42, which is good for
second in the NL Central.
Second in the NL Central behind the Brewers. Okay. It's in the first game of the 2-gamer will be Michael Wacha against Andre Palante, 25-year-old right-handed pitcher out of the University of California, Irvine. He's got a 4.00 ERA and a 1.44 WHIP, which is pretty high. 16 appearances total, but only about half of those are starts. He's got a mid-90s fastball, a sinker, a slider, a knuckle curve. He doesn't strike too many guys out, 18.7% strikeout rate. And he walks quite a few with a 9.8% walk rate, but he does generate some weak contact. He's definitely a ground ball guy at over 60% ground ball rate. Second game will be a pretty interesting matchup. Alec Marsh against Sonny Gray, the 34-year-old Renton ace, kind of, out of Vanderbilt. 3.30 ERA, 1.04 WHIP. Sonny Gray's been a good pitcher in this game for a long time now. He's definitely changed a lot in his career, as he doesn't throw as hard anymore. 4-seamer in the low 90s now with the sweeper, the cutter, the sinker, a big curveball, and a changeup. Just throws all those pitches with a great mix, no more than 25% for any pitch. Alec Marsh, I think, would aspire to be Sonny Gray. They're both kind of right-handed guys with good stuff. Sonny Gray being, a little bit better stuff.
Yeah. After that, they head to Boston. Boston is 49-40, which is good enough for only third place in the AL East, which is a very strong division. Their offense is just a tick above league average on the season. They're 102 weighted runs created plus for their offense, which is good enough for 13th in Major League Baseball. They're getting good seasons from Rafael Devers, who's awesome and is like their offensive force. Colton Wong and Duran Duran. Duran Duran, interestingly, was in the first game I ever scouted for Baseball Prospectus. I was sent there kind of to watch him. And so interesting. He's having a good year offensively. They're solid top to bottom on the offense. That's the thing. Their offense just doesn't have a lot of weakness in it. And so hopefully the Royals starting pitchers come prepared. Bullpen as well. The pitchers for Boston also very good. 3.66 ERA on the season. That's seventh in Major League Baseball. They're getting great years from Tanner Houck and Cutter Crawford. A decent year from Nick Pivetta, but their other starters are having kind of weak years. They are solid top to bottom in the bullpen, though. So if the Royals, they better hope that they get the week two starters, and then hopefully they don't have to beat out the bullpen because their bullpen's tough. We'll end this week's episode like we end every episode with our Just About Outside segment where we talk about something that's interesting to us outside the world of baseball. Mike, it has been quite a week for me. I finished setting fence posts, by the way.
Awesome.
Yeah, I know. I'm pretty stoked. Fence is almost done. But what have you been up to for the last week?
We tried to potty train my kid. It was an abject disaster, but that's not what I'm talking about. I am talking about my son though. And it's more of a call to action. It's a question to the weekly weirdos who are parents out there. And it's this: is my son a psychopath or is he just a 2-year-old? I don't know. I only have one child. I've never done this before. And man, this kid, when he is tired, when my son gets really tired, one of two things happens. Either he gets what I call baby drunk, which I can't be the only one who's ever seen this happen to a toddler, and I can't have invented that. So I don't think I invented that or anything, but he gets like he's drunk. He gets like, I love
Mostly
you,
because
Dada.
he's drunk.
I love you, Dada. I love you. Scooby-Doo came in with a crowbar. Yeah, and he did my taxes. I'm like, what are you talking about, man? This kid is insane. And he can't stand up. He's like stumbling around and stuff. So baby drunk is actually fun and kind of cute. I don't mind that. The other thing he gets when he's extremely tired is psychopathic. Okay? He becomes this monster who hurts people for fun and lies for fun. And you'll tell him not to do something. So he'll look at you in the eyes, look down, do it, and then look right back in your eyes again yeah, bitch, what are you going to do about it? Who is this? Who is this? 97% of the time, my son is an adorable, sweet little kid. And then when he's insanely tired, he's like, you better get some locks on those doors tonight. What? I'm terrified of him. Okay? So
you're about to get shivved by your own son.
Let me know. Should I be afraid of my son? Or is this just normal 2-year-old behavior? Because I don't know.
Yeah, I have no idea either. I have no kids. But I find it hilarious that he looks back up at you and he's like, do something about it. Let's do it. You want to throw hands? Do something about it.
He's like, you're not going to do anything. Come on.
That's what I love. Your kid's going to own you. I'm talking about something because I watched a movie the other night, but I'm not talking specifically about that movie, but it's basically about that movie. And Mike, you've probably heard about how there's a bunch of nostalgia in pop culture now. There's so many things happening that are just specifically for people to remember a better time, which is why we're seeing remakes and sequels of movies that happened 20, 30 years ago and stuff like that. I watched the new Axel Foley, the new Beverly Hills Cop movie the other night.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
And what's interesting about it is, so one thing I noticed is that or one of the things I've read is that one of the reasons that that's happening, this whole nostalgia pop culture trend, is times seem so difficult now and so hectic and chaotic and tragic and sad that people just desperately long for the media of times that seemed much simpler and much better. And so that's why nostalgia is such a powerful force in our pop culture right now. I think there's something to that, honestly, because I watched this Axel Foley movie the other night, and Riggs and I had just watched the first 3 a couple of months ago because she had never seen them. And I was like, oh, let's watch them then. And I've seen them, of course. They're amazing and I love them. But we watched the new one and it's not a good movie. Just FYI. Sorry, spoilers for those of you who want to see it. I'm just going to let you know right out the gate. It's not a good movie. But it does touch that nostalgia thing just enough to be like, yeah, I'm enjoying myself watching this. I know it's not good, but I'm enjoying all
Surge
the
make
little...
an appearance? Is Surge in there?
Surge makes an appearance, yes. And so I'm just loving all the sort of callbacks. I know they're so easy to do, and so like they're gonna do that again, great. But I'm like, yeah, cool. Let's laugh. I'm laughing because it's funny. It's funny to do that again. It's funny that you went there again. And so love the nostalgia pop culture. It's a harmless thing to help us get away from how terrible things are all the time. And so I'm all for it. Eventually it's going to run its course. It's starting to already, because here's why it'll run its course too. They're not worrying too much about quality when it comes to these things. And so as a result,
we're just hitting the nostalgia button as quick and fast as we can.
That's all they're really doing. Is like, hit that button. And so I get that. It's probably an easier way to make money, but at the same time, I hope if they're going to do something like that, make it quality. That's important to me. But it was a great watch. If you like the first three, go ahead and watch this one, because you'll at least enjoy the aspect of getting to feel those old things that you felt for the first three. A lot of interesting callbacks, and so that's cool. That's all we have for you this week. Thank you so much for joining us here on Royals Weekly, presented by Bet Online. We really appreciate it. We are super, super pumped for this draft episode that we're going to do in a week. So join us live on the Royals Weekly YouTube channel. Subscribe to that. Subscribe to the Royals Weekly Substack for all the content we're putting out. We really appreciate it. We'll see you again next week for the draft show. Until then, be good to each other.
And go Royals.